Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting to order and declare it open. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given in the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Are there any apologies for absence, Mr. CEO?
Councillor Duffy for lateness this evening, working.
Thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use the appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administration purposes. Country, Councillor Greenhalgh will now conduct the acknowledgement of country.
I would like to respectfully acknowledge and pay my respects to the elders, families and ancestors of the Wiradjuri people who have been the custodians of this beautiful land for many thousands of years. I acknowledge that the land on which we meet today is the place of age-old ceremonies, celebrations, initiation and renewal, and that the Wiradjuri people's living culture continues to have a unique role in the life of this region. I recognise their connection to country and their role in caring for and maintaining country over thousands of years.
Thanks, Councillor Greenhalgh. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two. One is item 5.7, which is the Wirrabarra Walk lighting project. This is a non-pecuniary interest. I will stay in the room. I walk there every day, generally, at night. So I just thought I'd declare that. The second one is item 6.1 in closed session, and I need to declare a pecuniary interest in that one because the person that we'll be discussing in that is a customer of mine at the pharmacy.
Any others? No others. Our opening prayer, Mr. Peter Kinsella from the New Life Church Orange. Could you step up to the lectern, please, Mr. Kinsella?
Thank you. I invite you to pray with me. If you'd like to, you're more than welcome just to bow your heads and close your eyes. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this incredible country that we're a part of. God, we in particular thank you, God, for this great city that we all enjoy. God, I thank you for every councillor and representative. God, I thank you for the responsibility and the burden that they carry for our city and for our people. And God, tonight we just pray and commit our agenda to you. God, we just ask that that for all of the decisions that need to be made, for all of the needs that need to be heard, God, we just ask for wisdom and clarity and strength, God, as we continue to hold our city and its interests at heart. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Mr. Kinsella. Just before we adjourn into the public forum, I'd like to welcome the Year 10 Legal Studies students from King Ross Wallaroy who will be observing the council meeting tonight. So coming and hope you get what you need to get out of the council meeting. Thank you. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. We have 6 speakers tonight. We'll go to item 5.5, adoption of the integrated planning and reporting documents, and Mr. Cyril Smith. I'll just introduce you to all the other councillors. Mr. Smith, we've got Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhalgh, Councillor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Evans, Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Well, my main point is the community strategy plan, and so there are some great ideas involved in that plan, and hopefully when it comes to the operational of involving the community, the aspirations of that plan are put into actions. You know, recently I know that the Seniors Hub, you know, have a lot of community members involved in activities there, which is a great initiative undertaken by council. So I'm pleased to see that. And I would like to thank the councillors for their consideration to communities concerned about the DA development in the Bowen area. I think that's appreciative to know that the councils are listening to community members when they have concerns. So, well done. I think too is that the community strategy plan, I think, goes well with the development of the urban forest strategy. I acknowledge that council organised sort of, community, the opportunity to meet with the consultants doing the study. And I did take that opportunity to talk to the consultants, so I thank you again. Yeah, over the last number of years, I have been involved in a project on Carney's Drive, Glen McFawn Place, and in that new suburb, when it was developed, council built a drainage swale that has been bare for years and years, and so I inspired the revegetation of this drainage swale, make Orange more beautiful and livable. And I must admit that of recent times, I've been ably assisted by numerous people. The neighbours in the area keep an eye on sort of what plantings we've already put in. They undertake some maintenance of the area, weeding and mowing and watering of the plants to get them established. And they're very appreciative of the support given by other groups like Landcare have donated plants. Rotary, the 3 Rotary clubs have become involved in the project and have been involved in 2 plantings in the area. Their most recent one is only sort of about a month ago, where they planted some exotic plants. The idea is that Landcare planted a lot of native plants. So we want to develop, to show an area where it is recognising virtually the 2 different cultures. Native plants to represent the Aboriginal culture, First Nations people, and the exotics more or less to keep sort of our coloured city and European sort of culture sort of combining in sort of some reconciliation sort of gesture. The project, as I said, is on Carney's Drive, and it goes down to Brooklands Drive. And so it's an activity project for plants and animals and for humans. So we want to sort of more or less connect the area down to Brooklands wetlands, to make it more available for everyone to use the area. And I think sort of one of the things that firstly came out of our COVID crisis was people appreciate nature a lot more. And it's nature in our city that's going to help with people's well-being. That's what we should be looking for, and I think council will support that idea.
Mr. Smith, that's 5 minutes of it. Are you just about to wind up?
Yeah, I will. So, as I said, volunteers are important to the city, and I'm appreciative that council supports volunteers. And this project that I'm looking at now, it's come to the stage where over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been talking with council staff. We suggested to put in a bridge connecting sort of the playground in Botanic Way to Bet Place, but due to the cost of that, council now are suggesting and supporting the idea of putting pathways in to make it more connective, so people can actually get to the areas and use this nature area and the playground. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next speaker is on 5.7 Wirrabara Walk lighting proposal, and it's Dr. Glenda Hodge.
I'd like to thank the councillors, students, to witness democracy in action. Before the councillors vote later tonight, I'd like them to consider 3 issues that I think are important. The need and the rationale for lighting Wirrabara Walk. I believe the council hasn't properly explained the need for lighting on Wirrabara Walk. There is no overwhelming demand by residents. It can't be for safety, as there's virtually no criminal activity on Wirrabara Walk. In 2022, there was one act of vandalism where a car vandalised Duntree Golf Course and knocked over trees in Wirrabara Walk. Council didn't supply crime statistics for previous years, presumed because there's negligible crime. According to the crime prevention document provided by Council, lighting on deserted or unsupervised areas is acknowledged to be counterproductive. That is, it can bring in undesirables and encourage crime. Health and well-being is suggested as the reason for lighting. The walkway is primarily used by dog walkers, casual walkers, families and children going to and from school. Serious exercisers and joggers do not need to use Wirrabara Walk at night. 100 metres further down Forbes Road to the west, they can walk or jog along Kuranga Avenue to Coronation Drive and complete the circuit that way. This street is well lit and goes past Riowena Oval, where Council could place public exercise equipment. Council should consider promoting this extended circuit around the perimeter of Wesley. Lighting will not increase usage of Wirrabara Walk at night, but it will impact negatively on residents. I'd like to talk about the survey. The lighting survey conducted by the council proves nothing. Asking for agreement to a motherhood statement does not produce a valid answer. I use Wirrabara Walk as much as anybody and frequently do my own informal surveys. I ask, how often do you use the walkway each day? When do you use Wirrabara Walk? And if Wirrabara Walk had lighting, would you use the walkway at night? Overwhelmingly, the answer is no. People who use the walkway would not use Wirrabara Walk at night, regardless of whether it was lit or not. One woman asked, why would anybody want to walk here at night? In the council survey, people were asked which lighting option they preferred. A third of respondents answered that they didn't want either high lighting or low poles. That is, they didn't want any lights. So how does the council explain this? I would add, if people want to walk at night, they can already use a torch, a headlight on a visor, or they can use their mobile phones. Reasons for not installing lighting have been well garnered, but furthermore, the aesthetics. According to the Borough Charter, Wesley is considered a precinct of significant natural landscape. It is a garden suburb, and this should dictate a sensitive approach to planning. The Borough Charter stresses that aesthetics and social community values should be taken into account in any development. Wirrabara Walk is a natural landscape. It is a kilometre of natural vegetation with a beautiful vista, an avenue of oak trees. Installing hard metal lighting would destroy the beauty of this natural environment. I note that Council said they may need to install extra solar panels in this project. How big and obtrusive are these going to be? Where are they going to be placed? How will they impact the aesthetics of the area? Council has just overseen what I feel is an ugly and unsympathetic development of Lord's Place, with removal of established street trees and replacing them with hard concrete surfaces and metal fencing. How could Council guarantee that they could handle the lighting of Wirrabara Walk sensitively? I believe we were also asked that Council is considering alternatives if Wirrabara Walk lighting does not go ahead. With the money saved from lighting Wirrabara Walk, I would propose that Council consider the lighting of Cook Park, as this is closer to the city centre and could host community events like Food and Wine Week. Perhaps lighting the unlit walkway and overpass between Peasley Street and East Orange might make this area safer. Or perhaps use the money to repair and restore Lord's Place. Would urge the Council to reconsider their proposal for lighting Wirrabara Walk and to vote it down.
Thank you, Dr. Hodge. Mr. Mark Blanchard. Thanks, Mark.
On the same subject, of course. Evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start by saying how much we really enjoy living along the walkway and thoroughly enjoy the community spirit it allows. And also I would like to thank those councillors who have taken the time to reply to our letters and respond to our concerns regarding the proposed lighting on Wirrabara Walk. I know you all love orange, like the rest of us, and have taken your roles to represent the interests of residents, users and visitors alike. We have contacted you all on several occasions, outlining a number of what we believe to be valid points, so I won't go over those, and for assistance and support in resolving this issue. We believe, as is stated on the OCC website, that the role of a councillor as an elected person is to represent the interests of residents and ratepayers, provide leadership and guidance to the community, and to facilitate communication between the community and council. From the very beginning of this process, I believe that Orange City Council have not considered the concerns of the residents that live closest to the walkway. We put our faith in the process and integrity of our council, and very sadly, we feel we've been let down. After reading in the CWD in September 2021, my wife contacted council on numerous occasions, only to be told that there was no need to be concerned at this stage, as nothing can go ahead without a feasibility study and consultation with affected residents. That at this stage, there was no need to take this issue further. So you can imagine the shock that we felt when the first communication regarding secured funding for the walkway was an article in the Central Western Daily on the 15th of February 2023, informing everybody that a government grant had been secured and that the council would be talking to the neighbourhood regarding what lights would be installed. What if? As a consequence of a petition we put together of neighbouring properties, which was dropped into council offices on the 17th of February. In response, we were promised that a representative from council would be doing a door knock of residents, backing onto the walkway to hear their concerns and discuss the project. We waited and we waited for this opportunity, and unfortunately, it never came. However, when we contacted council to find out when the council would be calling or organising a concerned residents forum, we were told, due to them being under-resourced, that a door knock would be replaced by an information evening in the park, and that in no way this evening was intended to be a discussion about the project, other than to highlight the lighting. So moving along, we were very disappointed to discover that one day our under-resourced council had managed to find enough staff, I believe 4 in total, to be stationed at the ends of the walkway to target casual users in the early morning and early evenings in an attempt to garner support for their project. Sadly, didn't find enough resources to speak directly to the people who will be most affected by this lighting. When the meeting in the park was held, we as a large group of concerned residents looked at it as an opportunity to attempt to discuss our concerns openly and seek some answers to our questions. Apart from one gentleman, the concerned residents were the only people to attend. Unfortunately, we were told by a council representative acting as chair that this meeting was only to discuss the type of lighting and was not the correct forum to hear our concerns, and that the meeting in the park was just the beginning of the consultation. To be fair, at that meeting, after the effective dismissal, councillors were happy to engage with all of us and discuss our concerns, so credit to them. To date, the only consultation with neighbouring properties has been as part of the 3,000 letters sent to a broad range of residents, out of which only 192 people actually responded. This hardly indicates widespread community support. If councillors have the chance to read the survey questions, you will find the main question misleading. The main question in the later report was quoted as, "Do you support better lighting along Wirraburra Walkway?" This implies there is actually some lighting along the walkway and that it is inadequate. The main question does not ask, "Do you see the need for lighting?" Very different question. A very important point to make is that we cannot see how council fulfilled all of the requirements of the application for the funding in the first instance. It is very clear in the wording of the application for the grant that the project must have evidence of strong community support for the specific project. We could find no evidence that such support was sought. Only after the money was granted did council seek confirmation that community was in favour of this proposal. Further, it would seem that in spite of council having no data on how many people currently use the walkway and when, it considers it appropriate to light it anyway. Whether you are for or against this project, it is well known as elected individuals your role is to hold council accountable for its management and administration, which in this instance we feel has been lacking in every detail. If the council isn't completely open and transparent with its dealings with its own community, then this is a far greater problem than just this one project. In summary, we certainly believe we have not been dealt with in a transparent matter at any point in this proposal, and at best, we and our concerns have been dismissed as unimportant. However, as close neighbours to the walkway, we contribute to that community and that walkway. The community feel of the space with low fences and constant interaction with all the users of this fantastic public area, in truth, are likely a key compartment to its continued success, or we believe we're part of that. What I'm trying to say is we don't want to be putting up 6-metre walls so people can't see into our gardens late at night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Richard Madigan. Mr. Madigan here. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. A number of these points have already been stated, so I'll probably skip over them. And I'm here about the Wirraburra. Got three main concerns with regard to it. Most important to me is that there is no measurement for success of the project. Number two, the argument for the Wirraburra Walk proposal transfers the needs of different areas of Orange to the Wirraburra Walk precinct. And number three, about the application, which Mr. Blanchard just discussed, the community consultation requirement for the application didn't after the funding was granted. Three that I'm thinking. There is no measurement for success of the project. How many people use the path now and at what times of the day, night? What percentage increase in path usage can we expect if lights were installed? Every evidence-based project needs a measure of success. We need to know a baseline and what we hope to achieve by. What does success look like for the Wirraburra Walk lighting project? Success of the project must be measured by the increased usage of the pathway during the hours the lights are on. This must be measured by verified foot traffic data. Projects need measurable success indicators. I ask Council to record foot traffic numbers along the pathway so community stakeholders can benchmark success of the project. If we don't measure success, all the arguments bandied around are pure conjecture based upon individuals' gut instincts. I ask, what would happen if foot traffic was measured during the proposed lighting times, lights were then installed, and foot traffic didn't increase, or maybe it increased by about 5% of a low base. Project a success for us. It would show the lighting did not increase the utilisation of the path during these times, and therefore the merits of the project have failed to materialise. The argument for the Wirrabara Walk proposal transfers the needs of different areas of Orange to this particular area. There are many different areas of Orange with different characteristics. Where one area may need lighting to reduce crime in certain areas, when making statements about safety, the police report has given a general summary of the crime statistics in the Orange LGA. And they only mention one, as the previous speaker mentioned, about the drive-by and knocking over some trees. The police report states that lighting is an excellent safety measure for reducing crime. It is a general statement which we can all agree on. However, once again, it is not relevant for the specific area. People feeling safe will not be helped with lights when there are so many shadows along the pathway. People may feel the target as you walk along and you're lit up. See you coming. Feeling safe is different than being safe. Lighting make you feel safe, but is it safe? And Mr. Blanchard did talk about the funding requirements in the application and stating that the evidence of strong community support for the specific Wirrabara Walk lighting proposal is absent from the submission. The submission specifically stated that strong community support needed to be put into the submission before funding was granted. None of the documented evidence of community support in the grant application is specific for this project and only records support for the overall council strategy. There was no significant stakeholder engagement in the area, as Mark said, and I'll just jump over that because we have mentioned that. But I just want to talk about the Your Say questions as well, which was part of the community. The questions were so leading. They were leading the respondent. They would never stand high school academic scrutiny for a true response to a survey, as the wonderful students would else. One of the questions was 67% of people supported the proposal. The question stated something like, do you support an improvement of safety in the area with the installation of lights? Like, who wouldn't support? So just to sum up, and thank you for listening to me, we need evidence-based decision-making for the proper use of public funds, regardless of the source of those funds. Just because the stronger country communities granted us the funds, we require those funds to be used in the best public interest. Evidence-based decision-making, and that means measuring success. The specific Wirrabara Walk proposal should be subject to the characteristics of the immediate area, not have characteristics from other areas of Orange transferred to support the proposal. Stronger country communities granted Orange this funding to make us a stronger country community. What I see now is the opposite. Division, arguments, and a sense of foreboding about the project. How do we prevent this? By having measurements of success which is communicated to all stakeholders, so we can all aim for the goal of increasing the utilisation of the pathway. Unfortunately, until this happens, the purpose of the grant to make us a stronger community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madigan. Our next speaker is Rebecca Matthews on the same topic.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, what a great project the lighting is for Wirrabara Walkway. I walk the loop about 4 to 5 times a week and I'll feel a whole lot safer once the lighting's installed. Mornings in summer, late afternoon in winter, we walk in the dark and this feels unsafe along the walkway. How great will it be for the walkers in Orange to feel safe with added lighting, which opens up a broader time to walk. We all have busy lifestyles. Children, we can't all just pick and choose when we can walk. I want to go for a walk at 7 or 8 o'clock at night when it's dark, and with the lighting, I'll feel a lot safer. People who weren't able to speak tonight have spoken through the survey, and the results show the majority of 62% are in favour. So let's listen to the majority and install the lights. I have teenage daughters that also like to use the walkway, and I want them to feel safe also. Whether you're male, female, we all have the right to feel safe, and that's exactly what the lights will do.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Our last speaker is Mr. Ben Adams. Is Mr. Adams here?
Yep. Good evening, councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to voice my thoughts on this. I'm a regular user of the Wirraburra pathway. I generally head along there about 5:15, 5:30 every morning, so it's very dark. I'm in favour of some lighting along that pathway. Certainly enjoy the exercise, but there is a sense of concern that there's not a lot of visibility at that time of the day or morning. It is dark, certainly very dark. I did it this morning, actually. It was pitch black. So some thoughts would be, I am sensitive to the neighbours along that pathway, particularly with the potential lighting pollution. And initially I had felt that the taller lights might have been more suitable. I've had experience down the south coast where the bollard type lights were installed and they were repeatedly damaged, vandalised, to the point that council actually essentially gave up looking after those lights. So I was initially thinking the taller lights might be more appropriate. I am sensitive, of course, to the neighbours and the potential light pollution that they've no doubt got concerns about. But what I felt also was that the number of lights that are being recommended are probably far too many. I think it was mention of every 10 metres. I think that's overkill, but I certainly feel that there needs to be some lighting along that pathway, and potentially maybe a bollard style one might be more suitable if it means that there's less light pollution and so forth for the neighbours that back onto that. But so in summary, I feel that I don't, I'm a 48-year-old man. There are times when you don't feel safe walking along there at that time of the morning. As I said, visibility is very, very low. And I do feel that some lighting, perhaps more spaced out, would be appropriate, and I feel it would be a worthwhile investment. And yeah, that's all. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I'll resume the council meeting now after we finish the open forum. Item number 2.1 is Mayoral Minutes, Central New South Wales Joint Organisation Board Report on page 5. Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Evans. Any speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Just had one question maybe for you to the CEO. There's going to be a briefing on the Dutch model on page 6. What's the Dutch model?
Dutch model refers to a model of water use, which is used in Holland, where a litre of water is valued far more than we do when we splash it around the regions. They talk about the value of a litre of water in terms of its productivity a lot more than we do. So the growing of vegetables, the running of factories, where we just tend to call water irrigation water or towns water. So this is a move towards getting a lot more specific with water use, and the JO is very supportive of it. And it'll value town water a lot more than is currently the case in New South Wales. The council, Kent Boyd and the Parks Council, General Manager are right into this with their strategic activation precinct, because water for them will be so valuable.
Question?
Sorry. Does that mean that that litre of water?
Not so much. It's a sort of economic modelling approach that means when you're, say, selling propositions to the government and doing business cases, you're putting a lot more value on water than we currently do because of its productivity. I mean, when Orange was almost running out of water, a study was done on the impact if we ran out of water. It was millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. That puts a direct value on a litre of water. The angle that's being headed here with the GJO is to try to get town water supply valued far more. At the moment, town water is not a set water, it's just part of the whole thing. The actual thing JO is trying to aim for is town water will be sacrosanct, followed by industrial water, hundreds of millions of litres of irrigation water. They'll have value, but other water will be of known value. Hope it helps.
Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 3.1 is minutes of the ordinary meeting.
Minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor McGreenhouse. Your name tags are back to front, so I'll keep on looking at your name tags and they're back to front.
You're trying to...
Sorry. Councillor Duffy.
Questions are the director, is he about?
Over here, Mr. What do you want?
Okay, did we put in a DA for that, did we, or not? My question is, have we had any response from the developer of the 4.1 rescission motion? In the minutes you've said that there was usually a 10-day turnaround from that, and I'm glad that the students are here from Kinross. I think it's a fantastic one for them to have a look at. Because the reason I say that is because you can see when you look at the whole history of what we spoke about there is the removal of 5 trees. And there was some discussion about so they're going to bring $500,000 or $300,000 like a block of land in West Orange, is it? So the question is, have we had any response from the DA? And can you explain to me why those trees have to go and the ones on Sharps Road stay? There's 0.6 per hectare. Nothing but beautiful
Councillor
young
Duffy.
trees.
Councillor Duffy, you've asked two questions. Let's get probably the first question first.
Mr. Mayor, we notified the developer the next day after the council meeting, as was council's request that we move quickly on that. I'm not aware to date that the developer has come back to us with a proposal, which I'm not surprised by, because they would have to consider their design options. So I can check that and I can let you all know separately if you like.
Follow-up question to that one there. Your years of experience and our CEO's years and years of experience going to do with court matters. What would happen if it went to court? What's your opinion of that? Knowing full well that when council rezoned the land at the McDonald's
Councillor
sign,
Duffy, that's a bit of a. You can't make that.
Advice. He's obviously qualified. I'm after professional advice.
Can I? No. Sorry. Excuse me. I've got the floor here. That's. I'll rule that out. Order.
We'll go back to the second question then. What's the difference between those trees up on Sharps Road and 0.6 per hectare, and there's a lot of them there? What's the difference between those gum trees on Moranbrook Road? To me, it sounds very hypocritical that you unanimously pass one.
Is this a question, Councillor Duffy, or a statement? Is this a question?
What's the difference between those trees?
Almost, Mr. Mayor, a rhetorical question, because the points of that were addressed in the reports, the assessment reports of both development applications before council last meeting. Appreciate the fact that Councillor Duffy wasn't here for that one. The ones at Sharps Lane had a BDAR report with them to review the significance of their environmental value. Probably more to that. The trees identified for removal in that case were ones that council had planted previously. So that was slightly different to the remnant ones which were down the road at Mariba. And both related to the size, relates to the overall block size in relation to whether or not they triggered biodiversity offset requirements under the state legislation. That's when those sizes get in there. So a bit tricky to compare exactly the same two, but they were different trees, different site. But it was in a report, Councillor Duffy, so I don't think a staff member needs to debate that one.
Thank you.
There's going to be a statement because number one, it comes around to the director might wish to comment on it too. Four councillors used to have or the government, state government, who's our peak body that governs us, had a thing called Part 3A. They could just roll in and say, we're going to approve this no matter what. And then the new government got in, they said, hang on, we're going to get rid of that and we're going to get a bit clever. We're going to have regional panelling panels, which we're going to direct to take it out of council's hands. And to me, councillors, if this happens, like we put this through unanimously, only 3 people voted against the first time around, come through again and overturn it. You can understand why the state government is saying, hey, let's get planning laws out of council's hands because of the decision. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Move the minutes.
I have a mover. Did we have a mover of the minutes? You moved and we had a seconder. You got any other matters arising?
Yeah, I have just 3 things. First of all, page 19. The pecuniary interest, mine actually was pecuniary. It says significant non-pecuniary, so that's just been written down incorrectly.
Thank you.
Number 2, this is just a general comment as I was on Zoom at the time. It is sometimes really hard to hear with people's microphones cutting in and out when you're on Zoom, and I just think we need to look at doing something about that because it's hard to participate properly if you can't hear what's going on. And my third thing is on page 22, Councillor Peterson pointed out that when he had queried the amount of the budget that was spent on councillors, that the CFO had contacted him to tell him that actually the figure that had been originally quoted was wrong and it was only around a third of the amount. To me, so 2.36 million was the original amount. A third of that is $780,000. When I try and work out how much is spent on us, can't get it anywhere near that. It's still about 300,000 short. So I would like a breakdown of where that money goes. I'm just interested to know because if people are spending money on me, I like to know what it's being spent on. And the other part of that, it was good that Councillor Peterson told us about that. I did have a lot of questions on the night if we hadn't been told that, but it would have been nice if that correction was sent to all of us and not just to Councillor Peterson. So I don't know who decides what things get sent to everybody and what gets just sent to one person. I don't know. So.
Mr. Chair, we'll note those and get that detail back to all councillors on that split.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Any other matters? Other matters? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to notices of motion, which is 4.1, Floodplain Management Conference. Councillor Floyd, you moving this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Evans. Councillor Floyd, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll just, I won't delve into the motion as written there, councillors. However, I would like to thank Council's Manager of Engineering Services, Mr. Jason Theakstone, and our Strategic Design and Planning Engineer, Steve Collins, for showing me the ropes in relation to this conference, how it was set up, its expectations, and for their help with the motion as it's presented here before us. I actually arrived about halfway through the conference on the Thursday morning due to an incident in Bathurst that almost took the life of my father 2 days prior. So it was still a bit of a tough time to do that. It's still very raw to this day. But Jason and Steve-O got me up to speed with the sessions of interest, times, other conference info in no time at all. And really not knowing what to expect from this, I'd done a bit of homework as to what sessions I wanted to attend, and I found most of them to be highly technical, but very informative. All the speakers were outstanding in their field, and the whole conference itself did run like clockwork. I was able to make a list of the take-home points from the conference, which I've got there. I won't go into those, but certainly the highlights for me were meeting other councillors, meeting the engineers and the floodplain modelling specialists from all over the country, because this was a national event, as just opposed to a state event. Listening to the 10 or 12 different sessions that I got to over the 2 days I was there, as well as hearing about the lessons learnt from flood events, and there's been quite a number of those since about 2016, all up and down the eastern seaboard of Australia, throughout Australia, including, most importantly for me, was the devastating floods in our own backyard around this area. That was talked about at quite a few of the sessions, and that was really interesting to find out about those things. And then finally, of course, I certainly do thank Council for giving myself and our other councillors here the chance to attend conferences like this, because it helps build our knowledge base and a rapport with other councillors from other cities, and of course any influential people that we meet along the way, and that can help us build a better Orange.
Thanks, Councillor Floyd.
Ask for a point of clarification, if it's okay.
Yep.
With regards to the report itself, have we provided that? The reason I ask is, if we haven't been provided a copy of the report, would it have been helpful to read the report before we acknowledged it? That was my question. Well, it might be in the background, but I still like to read it before I acknowledge it, that's all. I understand that, it's probably a legitimate document, but for the sake of moving a notice of motion, would have liked to have been provided with a copy of the report. It makes reference to it,
yep,
but I would have expected to have been made available. That was all.
Thanks, Councillor Mileto. Do you want to speak to that, Mr. CEO?
Through Mr. Chair, I think this notice of motion, in fact, is the report. Councillor
I
Floyd,
believe it is.
correct? Yeah,
I believe it is.
Yeah, we don't normally do an extra report. Usually, these things come back as
So this
notices.
is a summary of the
content
conference.
is the only content available. Yep, getting a nod here. There is no extra report in this case.
Doesn't make sense. Might be wrong, but because it says that the report of the 63rd Floodplain Management of Australia Conference be acknowledged.
It needs to be Councillor Floyd's personal
notes.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The word report is misleading.
The studies and things
I
like
think we need
that.
to
I would
fix
just
up
sort
that
of like
wording a bit. Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank Councillor Floyd for presenting a report. It doesn't always happen after people have been to conferences, and it actually was good to read what had happened. I'd also like to note in there that the Council's Manager of Engineering Services presented a paper titled How Orange Told 3,000 People That Their Property Floods. I wouldn't mind seeing that presentation, the paper, if that's possible. Is that okay?
For you, absolutely. Get that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to just
Can you get him to speak?
made here a pat on the back. He's an
You speak
officer,
into the
and I think that's why-
Councillor Duffy. Just speak into the mic, please, mate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd
Fantastic.
like to
Sorry,
give my mate
kids.
here a pat on the back here, because it's his novice report, so I think it should be taken into consideration. But I have one question to what his studies had learnt as regards to what they've learnt out of the Brisbane floods. If you go up to any of us have been, I know a couple of us have been to Breakfast Creek Hotel, and you can see the flood levels from 1972 right through to the recent ones that they've made massive public in the press, great media in the press. And did they speak about the ones in 1972 were up around about the Sealy, and you come down to the ones in 2011, and those they're nearly down on the floor. So there's a huge difference there. So I just wondered, was that spoken about at the thing, or they only go back to 2016? A lot of people just choose where they want to start.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. No, a lot of these reports and that were back to about 2015-16. So yeah, a lot of those earlier flooding around those areas up in the Brisbane, sort of in that Twin Towns area, New South Wales, Queensland border, weren't spoken about back that far. No.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Floyd, for the report. It's grateful for it. I'd just like to encourage the publication these reports be a regular feature when councils attend conferences, and I thought that was actually agreed upon last year. I thought it would be a way to increase the return of the investment the council spends on sending us to conferences and increase value for money for us in the community.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just through you, Mr. Chair. Just like it is business to get the reports through, the recent conference that Councillor McDonald and I attended, we have got our reports sorted on those. Unfortunately, Councillor McDonald has had a couple of back-to-back conferences, so it is very difficult sometimes around your own personal commitments and council business to be able to get those in a timely fashion, but let me rest assured the reports are coming.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. Councillor Evans.
Mr Mayor, I'll also like to give Councillor Floyd a pat on the back. As another member of the Floodplain Management Committee, I also have been subjected to Director Greenham and Mr Theakstone's flash course in engineering. I certainly appreciate how your head must have been spinning, mate. It's a lot of information to take on, and I appreciate you bringing this report forward to us. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, there being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to general reports, recommendations, resolutions from the policy committees.
Move the recommendation, Mr.
Thanks,
Mayor.
Councillor Whitten. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Being no speakers, Councillor Kinghorn?
This is 5.2, yep.
No, 5.1.
It's a matter arising, Mr Mayor. Yep. Thank you. I've just had a couple of comments from residents regarding some of the speed limit on Forest Road coming from the distributor heading back towards the hospital where the car park is. Hang on, let me get my words in order here. I'm just wondering if we could refer it to the traffic committee to have the speed limit looked at being moved from where it is 60 currently coming off the southern feeder to have it 50 from there back to the entrance of the country club, just for safety concerns with people entering and exiting the car park on Forest Road. Just hoping we can have that referred to the traffic committee.
Are you
please.
talking about the car park from the hospital?
No, Jack Brabham.
I'm on the wrong road, aren't I?
Just off that light intersection.
Okay, we'll refer that.
Thank you.
Referring a
Safety concern.
Traffic
Speeding issue.
speed look at.
Want to change it from 60?
60 to 50. Just investigate.
Oh, just the director wants to have a yarn.
Just through the chair, if I may, the traffic committee doesn't consider those matters, but I will pass it on through Transport for New South Wales, and I'll bring a report back to council prior to making that change if they're supportive of it.
Chief, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.2, update on the standard completed resolutions of council, including questions taken on notice, matters arising and notices of motion.
Recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Two things. One, page 44, at the very bottom of that table, a question taken on notice. That was my question from May last year about how much money we will be saved when the smart meters are installed, the water meters. The action taken says, following up on context of question taken on notice. It was over a year ago. Nobody's asked me anything about the context of the question. I would have happily provided it. It would have taken 30 seconds and then maybe this could have been done. So do you want me to tell you the contact now, or you'll just send me an email? Or? Okay, thanks. The second one, page 56.
Number, sorry, Councillor King, 56.
Just find it myself. It was about the housing. It's in there as completed. The about getting the, so it's planning and development. So the second item on that table, organised a council to host a local housing summit that brings together a range of stakeholders, blah, 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 and that resolve for staff to prepare a homelessness policy. That actually says completed, adopted strategy, adopted June 2022. We had a small summit of just the councillors. I don't think we've had the big one yet, so I'm just wondering why that says it was completed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a mistake there. That looks like it was referring to the actual local housing strategy adopted back in June.
Okay.
Certainly the summit hasn't progressed. As I'd mentioned to council before, so I was trying to work out what was happening with our arrangement with Landcom on our site before we started progressing affordable housing. So it was, we get the direction there. And then it also raises the other policies, including homelessness, but also affordable housing is one of the outstanding other items out of the adoption of the housing strategy. And I've had meetings with the Department of Planning on those, and they've given me guidance on how we can approach, and also the need for a policy, I should point out, because that supports then the progress on our Redmond Place development, which would be a more simplified version of a policy that comes back just highlighting that council's focus is going to be out there. So that's where our direction is at the moment of preparing those policies there, but it certainly is still the plan to have the housing summit to bring the key stakeholders in, and it's a good time when we would be promoting what we're actually proposing out the road.
Oh, thank you. I was just confused because it said it was completed.
Yeah,
Thank you for
definitely
clarifying.
correct. Yep.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Director might want to stay there. I've got a couple of questions that I think will be for him through you, Mr. Mayor. On page 45, the second item there relating to the Sleep Bus initiative, I see the comment now is working group there has decided to invite some stakeholders for what's referred to there as a housing forum with a date to be set. And so I wanted to ask, is that a different event to the housing summit, or is it now something, it seems to me, sounds like because it's looking at housing options rather than the original Sleep Bus initiative, could be something that is effectively folded into the housing summit that came out of the local housing strategy motion?
One second, Mr. Mayor, I have to confer with one of my other directors on the Sleep Bus.
I can touch on that for you, Mike. So it's been a little while between drinks with the Sleep Bus Committee, but we've engaged with a couple of local stakeholders, where's Sam from, Gerald? DCJ. And he's essentially told us that we don't think that the Sleep Bus is going to be a fit for the issues that we have locally. We've looked at other supportive issues for the homeless. We're looking at a program called Orange Sky, plus some other initiatives that I think we probably need to get a report back to council on where we're at. I can't explain.
So would it be part of the housing forum?
Yeah, we're going towards the housing forum now. It's all going to tie in together.
Cool. Thanks. Another one on that same page down at the bottom, 94 Woodward Street. Got an update on the sale of the cottage, but just wondering, point to the investigation of options for social and affordable housing on the vacant lot and providing a report to council. Any update on that?
Councillor, Director Rob's got this one.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Mallard, we're actually progressing that, and a report will come to council around Woodward Street and also other parcel lands that we can consider for affordable and social housing, and some of those models that council consider in moving that forward.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, the property itself, the house is going on the market this week, next week, quite soon?
Correct. So we have engaged the sale agent, and we're just signing off on the agreement and marketing strategy. So we expect to see some signs going on that property in the next week or two.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I had noted the same issue Councillor Kinghorn raised about those housing policy items, but I did note they're all in the operational plan, so it's great that we're tracking to get those done in this coming year. I can talk more about that in the integrated planning and reporting. And I just wanted to note on page 64, the second last item there relating to my request for information about soft plastics after Red Cycle collapsed, and thanks for the information that's there, updating things. I did want to note, and for what it says about possibility that parks are looking into opportunities through their special activation precinct, but did want to note at the Australian Local Government Association conference that a number of us were at last week, that the motion that we put up that I drafted relating to soft plastics was one of about 11 motions relating to recycling and soft plastics. Yeah. But yeah, that motion passed unanimously. The motion that they put up on that, and Wallara added some extra things in about soft plastics in it. So it's definitely a hot button issue that we've got to work on closing the loop on these things. That's it from me.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.3, Local Government New South Wales Water Management Conference. Any councillors? It was pretty short notice, this one.
I'm just wondering why the short notice. I mean, it's less than a week away. We can really plan lives around.
Michelle, I don't know. Mr. Green, have you got any comment on this? I don't recall why it came through.
Infrastructure. Hang on. So I need a mover and a seconder to talk about it. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Evans. Councillor Duffy? Can you talk into your mic, please? Just speak into your mic. Sorry.
We definitely need someone to go to this conference because, number one, the biggest cry in Orange has been for the last 30 or 40 to 50 years is water. Where's it coming from? We've got a pipeline, we've got a dam, and we've got the Elmurra Dam, which Council is supporting. I know our other man from Mid-Western Council, the mayor over there, Ed Kennedy, he's fully supportive of it as well. So we should be up there and saying, hey, look, you know, what's happening with this? Because I know it's back on the table for it to happen. So we need to keep a track of where it's going.
Well, we got councillor staff going over. How many? Want to speak at the mic for us, please?
Through the chair, this is generally more of a technical conference, so 3 of my staff attending, not necessarily all days. One's attending the full conference, and 2 will be sharing the conference agenda based on their interests on matters that are being discussed. We did receive notice from the JO today that the Minister will be attending on the first day. It's generally not a political meeting, but in this case, she will be attending, and I'll make sure that I'm there, and if the mayor's available,
I'll be heading over to that meeting for the JO. So I'm heading over for we've got the Grade Commission coming to Orange on Monday. So then as soon as my commitments are done with that, I'll be heading straight to Parks for that meeting with the JO of Miss Jackson.
That's right.
Yep. Apart from that, is any other councillors interested in?
No.
No?
But I have a question. That's okay. I noticed with some of the items that are in this, there are 3 streams, and some of the topics are quite interesting. There are 3 streams. How do we rationalise that? How do we get people to go? Do we just pick which ones we think are more relevant to Orange, or just what people are interested in, or is there a way that these can be accessed? Do they record them?
Yeah, there's a full conference briefing at the end that's handed out to attendees.
Okay, so we do get the information even if we can only go to one of the streams.
Thank you. If it's anything to
Local Government New South Wales conference, so they generally do that fairly well.
There would be a report back from council staff if there needed to be?
If there needed to be, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be heading over Monday afternoon. Any other takers? Can't do it?
Commitments, yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, as infrastructure chair, I would have liked to go on, but as Councillor McDonald has already touched on, I can't get time off work with less than a week's notice.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, just a note too that we've got the Australian citizens on the Tuesday.
Yeah, I've got that on the Tuesday. So I've got a pretty full diary.
Yeah, I think our days are
Greenhouse?
pretty locked out.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to attend for one day.
Yep.
But I just think some other councillors just need to be mindful about hammering us about getting reports back. We're giving up time to go to these things. I mean, it's really important that we do get there and represent them, but I won't say any more.
So Councillor Greenhalgh will go on the Tuesday. Is it a 2-day conference or a 1 day? So it finishes Tuesday.
Can go Monday or Tuesday,
Wednesday.
whatever day you think.
You might go Tuesday because I will be over there Monday lunchtime.
It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. So, okay, well, Councillor Greenhalgh can go Tuesday and then the council staff can give us a report back for the Wednesday. Anyone else got anything to say? Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, just like to say, yeah, I would actually really like to go to this, but unfortunately work commitments and other commitments, I can't manage it either. But if we are if staff are attending on the Wednesday, I'd really be keen on a report back. I note there's an interesting session, damned if you do, damned if you don't, about the pros and cons of dam infrastructure, and it's got Professor Stuart Kahn from UNSW, who's I follow online, and he would be great to hear on those sorts of things. So if we get a report back, that'll be fantastic.
Any others? Councillor Miletto?
Yeah, just a point of clarification with regards to the cost of the conference itself. My understanding it was about $800 per participant. My question is, if we send multiple councillors on different days, do they get charged $800 each?
Certainly hope not.
Asking a question.
Yeah, I'd certainly hope not.
Through Mr. Chair, no, the one ticket you can swap between participants.
Okay. Going for the JO, so I can ask questions about Orange and the JO on that meeting. So maybe we might be able to see if we can get a 1 day if the staff are going.
We'll
over.
try.
Yeah,
Yep.
We'll see how we go.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 5.4, which is statement of investments, moved by Councillor Duffy.
Second it, Mr. Mayor.
By Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 89, just in the portfolio performance, I noticed that our portfolio performance has now gone back to we're equal with the cash rate, which is now, it was heading up towards the benchmark and now it's just come back. I'm just wondering why that is. We seem to be being constantly told that we're selling off the underperforming investments and replacing them with ones with a better interest rate, but clearly whatever we were doing, it's plateaued now, and I'm just curious about that. The CFO is not here, but I just...
Your Chair, the CFO's here. I'm sure she'd like to say
there.
something.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor. However, we're doing our best to keep up with the interest rate changes that are coming monthly. We're looking at all of our investments thoroughly, and when they do come on to maturity, we're currently looking at just short-term maturity, so we can then, once they mature, then we can catch up with the changes in the interest rates that are being given to us by our banking institutions. But it is a catch-up.
So I understand the process, but so you're saying it's just a timing thing. It's just
It is a timing
it's just
thing.
a lag because there are
Correct.
longer.
So as the interest rate, as the cash rate goes up, we have already locked in at the best rate that we could have got at that time, say last month. The best rate we could get last month was 5.2%. So as the interest rates go up, the cash rate goes up, there is a lag in the timing of when our maturities are maturing.
Okay, so we have been doing pretty well, but I've just noticed we're now back to the same as the cash rate. So I was just curious about it. So thank you.
Any other questions? There being no other questions, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll call on Councillor Duffy to come up and do item 5.5, which is adoption of the integrated planning and reporting documents.
Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, this is Council's yearly budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We move on to 5.5. We have a recommendation
I move that we do this in seriatim, Mr. Chair.
Can I? Item 3. Recommendation has got an addition. 8 addition, which was emailed to councillors, which is number 3 has changed, and the rates have been dropped in there.
So number 3 here has changed.
Correct.
So, councillors, what I might do is ask the CEO to read out the recommendations that the staff have put in front of us, and so we all understand what format it's got in.
One by one.
Oh, yep. Okay. Yep. I'm happy with that. Read it.
Yep. Okay.
Deal with them one by one, but we'll get the list from the CEO how the order they're going to go
So,
in.
councillors, as printed in your paper, 1. So I don't propose to read it out. I'll read the first bit. To adopt the schedule of fees and charges as listed in exhibited draft operational plan for the period 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024, etc., ending in received from the New South Wales Government. That's item 1. Item 2 is as printed. The following expenditure for the period be voted in accordance with a table. 3 is the late addition given to you, and you should all have a copy in front of you. And it says, in accordance with sections 534, 535, 537 and 538 of the Local Government Act. Hope you've all got that in front of you. And it goes on to talk about ad valorem rate and the dollar base amount, and then has a table with ordinary rates. It's essentially the rate details which were omitted by error. Number 4 is then, as printed, number 3, to adopt the delivery plan, the operational plan, etc., A, B, C, D and E. And the new number 5 is that the council allowance be set at, etc., which was the previous number 4. Clear? And the motion is to deal with them in seriatim, which for the Latin scholars...
We have a move with the motion to deal with them separately by Councillor McDonald. We have a seconder for that? By Councillor Greenhill. I'll put that. Those in favour, raise your right hand. Unanimous. So we'll go on to item number 1, which is the goal to adopt the schedule of fees and charges. Do we have a mover?
Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any comments? Item number 2. I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Now move on to item number 2, that the following expenditure for a period of 1 July 23 to 30 June 24. Move and a seconder.
Happy to move it, but I have a question.
Moved by Councillor.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. At a recent council meeting, we voted. At a recent council meeting, we voted to increase the budget for parks and gardens. Wondering whether that's been taken into consideration with the operational.
Can I just give it a bit of a break here? I'm going to ask the CEO to address the submissions before we keep going through, and that's a part of the submissions. And he has a very different answer that we can something we can work on as regards to quarterly statements.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, while you're considering item 2, which effectively is the bottom line, let's call it the budget bottom line, I'll answer that question first. So the recent open space contract was given to Barnes. That amount is in this budget. Is that what you're referring to, the contract that was given?
No, there was a motion that was from the Parks Street passed by the council.
Yep.
That the budget for Parks and Gardens would be increased.
Right.
It wasn't a dollar amount, it just said would be increased. I'm wondering whether acted on.
Mr. Maunder, can you answer that with any accuracy? No. CFO? No.
So we can assume there's no increase.
At this stage, I think we can assume there's an increase, but not a known increase.
But it can be something that can be adjusted in the quarterly budget review.
Budget too.
bring it back.
It can be discussed.
There will certainly be an increase, Mr. Chair. It's a question of whether the increase is what was envisaged by the committee. I think we need to come back to you with the increase and whether that satisfies the committee.
Thank you.
Okay, noted. So, Mr. Chair, while we're looking at the bottom line, it's probably worthwhile discussing on page 108 some of the submissions that came in, because if you were to merely vote for number 2, you would be voting for the draft budget unamended. So if you go to the table on page 108, you'll see that there were several submissions from ratepayers, some of whom were part of the Orange Runners Club, and they also included they included a request that council look at more pathways and various infrastructure for Elephant Park and also the back entrance of Gosling when it comes onto Huntley Road. Now, these submissions are not very detailed in their nature. They're not detailed design proposals. So what I was proposing to do, well, this one is that staff investigate designs and we'll do some concepts and come back at the next quarterly review with costings for your consideration, rather than just make a stab in the dark at the costing. You'll recall you yourselves discussed at the draft budget meeting an additional $300,000 for footpaths. You need to vote on that this evening. So you would need to amend number 2 to add the 300. There was a submission urging council to continue with the Future City program. There's $5 million in there for the Future City program, but the projects are not yet defined. So a future briefing, and possibly you need to define this financial year, what you want to do in the Future City.
That will come back.
Right, that will come back, so you don't need to do anything tonight. There were submissions on affordable housing, which were slightly nebulous, but we would argue that your Landcom suburb is enough in terms of budget for now. And some of the housing strategy work that Mr. Hodges is doing. There was a submission or two on climate change, asking for a greater focus, but no real monetary budget sort of thing. And then again, that's up to you. You can do what you like, but we know the ESCI committee is now focusing on what next to do after the signing of the 100% renewable electricity contract. So we couldn't quite nail anything to put in the budget on that. Mr. Smith spoke so eloquently on Clem McFawn. We thought staff should also engage with Mr. Smith and look at the actual costings and bring that back to a quarterly review. Similarly, the Friends of the Botanic Garden asked for $150,000 from council. They would give 50, but we would also advise that staff go and engage and do some proper costings for our 150 component and then bring that back to the quarterly review. So in summary, we think it would be prudent that you can really only consider the 300 for footpaths tonight.
So we're going
Just a question through you. At our meeting to vote this to go to exhibition, council resolved to add that exhibition document. Why would we? Should have went out on exhibition, approved it.
Mr. Chair, we approved the words, I think, that said, and it goes on exhibition as a draft, and that council was considering 300 extra, but you haven't voted to. I think tonight's the night you need to vote to put the 300 in.
And what you're saying through you, Mr. Chairman, to the CEO, is that 300,000 does not appear on the bottom line of.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. So tonight's the night. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So basically, just to clarify a couple of things there, which one is the Botanic Gardens, and the back entrance to the to Gosling Creek, they can be both come back as subject. And I have a big interest in Botanic Gardens because that's been put forward by our voluntary group of volunteers who've been putting their own money and other money in it as well. So that can come back
It's not
as
part of this budget.
a report.
Back to us.
Back to us. Yeah, but I just wanted people to understand. But what I think we also got to understand the major, because we're talking about the major project of the budget, which here in this resolution is that this budget contains the Southern Feeder Road, it contains the Planetarium Conservatorium, it contains contains the sports precinct, and also parts of Clergate Road, and then a lot of other things which the staff have obviously done. And probably in interest to the students up the back, we might have part of that discussion.
For procedure, Mr. Chair.
Happy to second that.
For the,
do we have a move and a second for the motion? They might be willing to accept that.
Through you, I'll ask that question.
So the suggestion is, would the original move to be acceptable? Was that you, Councillor Whitten?
I didn't move.
I think Councillor McDonald and Councillor Peterson.
Yeah. Are you happy to
original?
accept the $300,000? Here we go.
Is that okay with you, Councillor Whitten? So just for clarification, number 2 now reads, with the addition of $300,000 extra for footpaths program.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to what the students at Kinross, and I know students at Kinross are very heavily involved in the HPV series, which is the Human Powered Vehicle series, which we hope to get moving out at Gosling Creek, and I have no doubt we'll have discussions with the senior staff at Kinross. Okay, any further discussions on the budget?
So the total amount now, if we vote in favour of this, the amount for footpaths is it 708,000? Is that?
Yeah, you'd ask that. I think it is 708. Yes. 708.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a comment. Page 113, we have the engagement tool, survey tool, which has a beautiful yellow and green pie chart. In light of the comments that have been made by some of our Wirrabara Walk residents, I just thought I'd point out with this one that the options are, so the council has decided to spend $600,000 on new footpaths and footpath repairs. Do you think this new amount is? The options are not enough or about right. There is no option for too much. And I just think if we are going to be genuine about the sorts of engagements that we do, then we do need to be genuine with the questions and give people the opportunity to disagree. So just a comment.
Okay, Councillor Mallard, do you want to comment? Any further councillors wish to make comment? No comment, and put the resolution, which is inclusive of the $300,000. All those in favour, raise your right hand.
Unanimous.
Now move on to dot point 3. We have a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Floyd, seconded Councillor McDonald. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification that table did appear in the documents that were
See you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, CFO? Yes is the answer. Thank you.
that may have been missing.
No.
Any discussion, councillors? I'm going to put, Councillor King on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, because this is about the amount of rates that people are paying and that we're doing the maximum amount allowed, I just wanted to acknowledge that we didn't apply for an increase, which we could have done and probably would have been granted because the inflation rate's over 7% and the increase that's being applied is 3.7%. So I just think that needs to be acknowledged. We did have some discussion previously about a lot of the extra work that's being done by the CFO and her team to go into great detail to try and work out where we can save costs, and I would like to reinforce that I think that should be a standard thing and not something that's unusual. Thank you.
Any further comments? No further comments. I'm going to put that resolution. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Nice. Move on to dot point 4. Have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion?
Just got some more questions. Probably through you two. I'm guessing Director Rob. More about the operational plan, I believe, in terms of the breakdown of time casual, part-time, male, female.
What page do we have?
Oh.
Sorry about
Thank you. Look, I just note in the report there that council does obviously employ more at the moment more women than men. I'm just sort of looking at this from lens. What is interesting is that far and away the full-time roles are held by male staff members. And I'm wondering do we have any data on whether that's role specific, whether it's a choice in terms of like a work-life family balance, and do we also have a breakdown, or can we get a breakdown at some point in terms of like our leadership?
I'm the only female senior executive, Councillor McDonald.
Within the departments as well as in terms of. So I'm just wondering, if we have that data, are we able to get that data?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a really important question. For this operational plan and to finish off our delivery program for this term of council, I'll be quite honest that our data is pretty basic when it comes to our breakdown in sort of gender. And currently we don't track non-binary either. So we are very traditional in the way we are tracking diversity and inclusion. However, as we develop our workforce management strategy for the next delivery program, it's something we want to build some sophistication in. And also as we start doing our workforce planning, looking at those targets and making sure we can, we compare now, but what are the targets and how do we track? So I can only give very standard, I won't say basic, but sort of standard data on breakdown from males and females and the ratio of full-time, part-time and casual, and there is some rationale around that. One, around the services that we deliver, and two, about personal choices about work. But I'm also very pleased to say that we've just got some results back from our people survey, and we have scored incredibly well as a council, particularly on flexibility, diversity and inclusion, and satisfaction scores are highest in our female cohort. So I'd love to share that with councillors in a more detailed briefing.
Any further questions?
Clarification.
Yes, Maleta.
A point of clarification through you, Mr. Chair, to the Director. Just with regards to the figures which the councillor has asked for regarding part-time, casual, gender-based, I'm just wondering, will that information indicate whether those positions are requested? Sometimes people will ask, depending on their personal circumstances, that they want to work casual. I'm just wondering, is that broken down into male and female?
It is, yes. So we do have a breakdown from gender on who, if you're working casually or a casual employee. The preference, though, of people requesting to have a casual or part-time role as a personal preference is not detailed in that way. But definitely we can break down from gender on part-time, full-time and right.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. On point 4, I'd like to put forward an amendment for debate that the council and male fees remain unchanged. I appreciate it's not a lot of money in the scheme of things, but just...
It's 5.
You need to vote on U4 first.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Apologies.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, just in my comment as regards to this, and especially when it comes to dot point C, is that we've been through a fairly rough time over the last few years with regards to COVID, and this council, to its credit, did not put any staff off or put anyone at all, and therefore the lifestyle of a lot of people, although affected by COVID, wasn't financially impacted. And I think that's a huge plus to our CEO and our staff management. And bearing in mind the next dot point, I want to, and hopefully the Mayor will address this when he comes back in the chair, that I want to thank the staff for their huge effort in bringing forward this integrated planning and report to us to move the budget. There's a lot of work involved in it, and to our finance director and our other senior staff, thank you very much, and the CEO for your comments. I'll say thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to put that resolution. All those in favour, raise your right arm. Unanimous, carried. Okay, dot point 5. We have a move and a second.
Recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson and then Councillor McDonald.
Put an amendment that the council and mayoral fees remain unchanged. I appreciate it's not a lot of money in the scheme of things, but just because we can increase wages to a maximum amount doesn't mean we should. I think personally refusing a pay increase is a good way to demonstrate our personal and not just theoretical commitment to financial stewardship in these uncertain times.
Vote against it.
Okay.
You would just vote against it, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify what
Unless
Councillor,
there's something.
just clarifying what it is, you're speaking against the you're speaking against the motion.
As long as that would mean that
That's
it
all right.
remains unchanged.
No problem. Further speakers, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, look, obviously I'm speaking in favour of the motion. Look, we are all very aware of the fact that costs of absolutely everything are rising. However, I think what a lot of people sort of seem that, either we can afford to do this just for pure love, or that we're paid well enough to do it, spend time away from our regular jobs or our families. Yes, the allowance is not great, but I'm possibly going to say a bit of a naughty word here, but we work bloody hard for that money. I had a great conference last week down in Canberra, but it was almost an entire week away from my son. I'm not a dual income household. And whilst I love what I do as a councillor, the very least we deserve for our hard work, what we do for our community.
Next, Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, I'll be voting against this. I appreciate what the other councillors have said. You know, your rising costs of living, your rate increases, and I certainly don't mean this as a reflection that we're not entitled to receive, you know, fair, as my dad would say, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. But I did vote against this last time it come up, and I'll be using that same things as what I did last time with rising costs and all this sort of stuff to vote against it again tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll also be voting against this, same as last year. I just think that we need to rein in costs, and this is a way that we can do that.
Any further comment? Councillor Mallard, do you want to comment?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, am I going to be closing I haven't spoken yet, so am I right to speak as the mover?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Yeah, I obviously support the motion. Look, it's always this uncomfortable situation where we've got to make a decision about our own remuneration. It would be much nicer if we could avoid that. The Remuneration Tribunal's only recommended, my understanding, it's a 3% increase, which is well under inflation. And I think it's really important, like having gone and attended a local government conference again last week, to be reminded about the importance of diversity in our councils. And you know, the comment I remember from the conference last week was if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. That's one way of looking at it. But the way I look at it is if we want to give the opportunity for anyone who cares about their community to stand for local government, then there needs to be adequate remuneration. Otherwise, it's just going to be a game for rich people, largely blokes, quite often people who might have interests in the sorts of decisions that local government makes. I think we are much better off for removing that sort of privilege and creating a situation where nowhere near adequate remuneration, you know, $26,000 a year for the effort that councillors put in and the time that it does take away from work and family and other commitments is not a great amount. Yeah, and it's not a huge dent in the council budget either in the grand scheme of things. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, that was a Freudian slip.
Having visions, are you?
No visions, nightmares. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll be speaking for the motion. As a 20-year councillor, this always comes up during this time. And I'm always supportive of all my colleagues in this chamber, no matter how they vote. But councillors should never underestimate themselves. They should be never embarrassed about what they need to do and what decisions they make, especially around if it is to give themselves a small increase. And I think some of the councillors have mentioned that limit the prosperity of the quality of councillor that will choose to run for this future, all diversities from the community. And that means single mothers, unemployed mothers, fathers may not be in a position from an equity standpoint to spend time in council. So if we vote against the ability to increase a small amount of pay to a councillor or a mayor, never caught up on it to the detriment of this. So that's my opinion. And if councillors are of a mind that they are against it, but the council choose to up pay rate, we can give it to charity. It's our choice, right? We can do with that money as we wish, right? Back into the community anyway. I hope.
Can I have a second, Mr. Chair? We've got a slight technical issue here, councillors, if you'll bear with me. We might need Councillor Peterson's amendment after all. Just reading the circular from the Department of Local Government. Bear with me. The council cannot fix a fee higher than the maximum amount determined. That makes sense. If a council does not fix a fee, the council must pay the minimum fee determined by the tribunal, which means you'd actually slip back to $14,000 from your current level, which is 25. I imagine we don't want that to happen. The spirit of Councillor Peterson's motion was to hold it where it currently is, correct? So, I'm just thinking on my feet here, and I'm getting a nod from the corporate director. I think you need an amendment from Councillor Peterson with a seconder saying nicely what he said remains unchanged from, say, this year. We'll play that out.
I want a bit more clarification on that, because what you're saying, if it remains unchanged, therefore it doesn't go to the new figure.
If you were to vote, you need the amendment, because if you were to vote to the council,
are the mover and the second of the motion happy to accept that?
No, we need the amendment, or you'll lose $10,000 each.
Okay.
I'll move the amendment that it stays unchanged.
Seconder. So, Mr. Chair, everyone with me? Amendment needs to be voted upon. Then see how that goes. So the amendment says this is where you get to say don't change it. Right?
This is where we get to change.
Then if you do want to change it, then
don't increase it by voting on this amendment. Let's see how that goes.
Can we just add a bit more clarification so we can all understand what's going on here?
So, amendment says from Councillor Peterson. No, it's fine. From Councillor Peterson and Mallard, the amendment says that council and mayoral fees will not be increased from that is current. Correct, Councillor Peterson? Correct. Okay, yeah. Sorry. That is current, okay? That is the amendment. The motion is that as printed. Okay? And of course, Ms. Constantine, there are figures associated with that. We'll type that up correctly later. Thank you.
Okay. We have a new amendment on the board, and I'm going to give every councillor the opportunity to speak for or against the amendment if they so wish. And I think, Mayor,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak against the amendment. We've got to remember these figures that are on this page. We've got to take tax out yet. So that's before tax. So that figure drops considerably. The other, you know, everyone's saying that things have gone up. Well, I think our time is worthy of going up as well. We all, I see the councillor role as you can't switch off and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. You know, I'm going to have a day off, because you go down and get petrol, you go to the grocery market, you go wherever you go, you're going to get questioned, and that's the job. I get it, but I think our time needs to be valued. The local government conference last week, I spoke to a mayor from Western Australia who's on $160,000 a year. The deputy mayor was on $80,000 a year, and the councillors were on $30,000 a year. They are elected by the council. He was telling me the government fix all that up, but the government are forcing them to popularly elected mayors. That's just a bit of a bite of what he said. But I think we deserve a 3%. I think we work hard as councillors and mayors. I think, as Councillor Whitten said, don't put down what you do, because it can be taxing. You can think about a lot of things all the time, which you can't switch off. And yeah, just have a think about it. Thanks.
Any further comments?
The mic's working. Question that's always needed to be asked, but it hasn't been asked. Why aren't we? Why doesn't the money taxed prior to come? Not a stipend, because it's covered by super wage. Taxed before we get it.
I know the answer to that, but I'll let the directors take it.
Director Rob, any answer?
Just concurred with my learned colleague, our CFO, and the answer is because you're not employed as an employee.
Classed as employees. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Councillors, I'd like to make a comment as regards to what we have here. We've heard it said before as regards to making the playing field a little bit more even as to who can actually stand for council. I don't want to see that hardship is a reason why someone cannot stand for council. We've got to remember that inflation's gone up 7%. It has gone up, and we've seen, as the Mayor indicated, we've seen costs of fuel and everything else rise on some occasions around about 30 to 40%. We also look at as the Mayor indicated, what's happening in other councils. You go to Queensland, the figures are just as good as what Western Australia is, and they probably work just as hard as what we do. I know we don't work any less harder. Those who wish to vote against it, you can make a donation to a public benevolent fund or any organisation you wish to make if you don't want to receive the money. It can be made. I know previous councillor in this council said he was going to give the money to a organised charity. So that's up to the individuals themselves. But I'm going to be, as I said, I'm speaking for the against the amendment and for the motion. I also want to make clarity on something as this, and I know the Mayor brushed the shoulders of the Prime Minister on the week during last week, and so did myself and Councillor Whitten. Spoke to a number of ministers and those two things in Canberra.
And Councillor McDonald and Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, and the other councillors there. We all brushed with those people there. And the Mayor said to me, he said, the Prime Minister knew about Orange. He knew what he'd given Orange. He knew what he had been here before. And it keeps us there. And let me tell you, they're not junkets. For me to go to that conference in the last 2 weeks, it's cost me just under $3,000, my own personal expenses. And others were gone away from their own private business as well, cost them the business. So we're not going on junkets. We're not doing anything to this. And this is some remuneration. If any councillor goes anywhere to receive and make representation on this behalf of council, and it finishes up being the tipping point of coming back with a windfall of $1 million or even $500,000 to go towards a project, it is very well spent and very well done. As I said, I always say yes and thank you, no matter which government's in power, is to say any funding that comes our way. And it's us of getting off our butts and making that happen. And a good example of that was last week at the NGA, where we spoke to a number of councillors, a number of ministers there. And I know the Mayor has access to a lot of more ministers now. It's from some of the conferences he has been to. So I'm speaking against the amendment. I'm speaking for the motion. I know how hard it is, especially for the Mayor and what he has to do. as regards to his own personal life and what he forgoes as well as councillors. Being no further, I'll give you the right of reply if you want to right of reply, Councillor Mallard. Okay, councillors, I'm going to put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment, raise your right hand.
1, 2.
Those against? Declare the amendment lost at a vote of 9-3. Now the motion now becomes is the motion. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, raise your right arm. 8, no, 10, and against is 2. The motion is 10 to 2.
Thank you.
And declare they're carried.
Can I just have a matter arising from that? Can I just have a matter arising from what we've just done? I've got a question. Under the Local Government Act, just to contextualise some of this, you can't choose to be paid less. You have to be paid, everybody has to be paid the same, and you have to take a payment. You can't just request to have it not paid. So what we could do last year, though, was to request that we didn't get superannuation, and some of us did choose to do that. Is that still the same? So we can still continue that this year?
I believe so.
Okay.
Through Chair. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors, and our integrated planning report. I must say that's the biggest discussion we've had on a budget. We're all about over $200 million, with $93 million at capital.
All been too much for the students. We'd say goodbye.
Never get back.
Just while the students are leaving, I would like to thank the council staff. I would like to thank the CFO, the CEO, all staff involved. Yeah, a great result, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
He's probably learnt they're not going to be councillors, they don't get paid enough.
I think they're going to do finance somehow, but anyway. We'll move on to item 5.6, which is speed reduction Lucknow.
The recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? Councillor Mallard?
Thanks. Yeah, happy to support this motion and thanks staff for bringing it forward. Yeah, look, it's I know it's gone back and forth the speed a bit as the report indicates, but I do think it's a small inconvenience to drivers to have to slow down an extra 10 kilometres an hour for something that will provide better safety and better amenity for pedestrians and for the village. I think it makes sense. I know the last few years I haven't driven through as much as I used to when I was in the office in Bathurst every day, but still drive through there semi-regularly and on weekends as well. And there's definitely increasing foot traffic and people wanting to get across from one lot of shops to the other lot of shops. I think it's a good opportunity that'll help make things safer and help the village grow its contribution to tourism. Thanks.
Councillor Mallard. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, obviously in favour of this. This is something Councillor Evans is chair of the Lucknow Community Committee, and I have heard firsthand from the residents out there. The speed limit was increased back in 2012 by 10 k's without any consultation with the residents, and they've been agitating for it to be returned since then. As Councillor Mallard mentioned, with it's grown in popularity, Lucknow, as a village, and this just makes sense to reduce it back down for safety of all.
Thank you. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of things. This report, apart from trying to get through the report when they don't understand that the term Main Street is 2 words and not 1, and that opportunities only has 2 P's and not 3, say anywhere in there that the speed limit should be reduced. But then on page 511, it assumes that it's 50 kilometres an hour already. Now, this was written in 2015, the report. The information on this that's given by council says that it was actually increased to 60 kilometres an hour in 2012. So I've just wondered, it just made me wonder about the veracity of the report, if they've just cut and pasted from something else and just bugged it up. There was just quite a few things in there that, and it just made me wonder whether it was actually even valid at all. So I don't know if anyone has a comment on that. And I also wondered whether you can actually have pedestrian refuges in the 60k zone.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we might ask Mr. Greenham to comment. Also, probably Director Rob. Wrote the report. Any?
No, sorry, the report, not the council report. The
It's the
Oculus report. Oh, Oculus.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, good point. I can't comment on the Oculus report. Predates my start with council, so I can't comment too much about the Oculus report. But on the question of whether you can have a pedestrian crossing in a 60 zone, I think it'll probably be precluded. What I can say, and I'd take that on notice and qualify that, I do know though is you cannot have a pedestrian crossing when you have more than 2 lanes. So for a good section of Lucknow, you have an additional lane and you have merge tapers in there as well. And I do, there are talks about upgrades through there as well that may consider additional lanes as well.
Okay, I think like reading some of the recommendations in the report, if they do all those things, then obviously the traffic would need to be slower. I just sometimes think we get so caught up with trying to make drivers go slow that we forget that if we frustrate drivers, then they become less safe as well. So I think if just should be an automatic agreement to dropping everything to 50 or 40 or whatever. I think that we probably need to think about it a bit more. If that's what the residents want, then happy to support it. But just wanted to make those comments.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor McDonald's already pinched most of my comments, but it is something the residents of Lucknow are really looking forward to, and we're really going to start getting underway on this footpath down the side from the bus stop back towards the pub soon. So it'll really complement that quite well. And as the director's already mentioned, because RMS own the road and it's a dual carriageway most of the way, it's difficult to put other pedestrian safety measures in there for people to get from the boot barn and the pub across to the larder and home. So I really think it's a great measure to advocate for. And as we've seen in the report, once we get the footpath and the speed reduction underway, it's going to give us a bit more scope to improve the village a whole lot more. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I remember these discussions about Lucknow, and certainly the common sense approach is to reduce it to 50, but because it's a highway and it was 50, RMS reverted it back to 60 for continuity because there's no 50 kilometre-hour stretch on that highway. Raglan, even through Bathurst. Stewart Street is 60 kilometres. Raglan is 60 kilometres. When it was 50, and we were lucky enough to get it, they reverted back to 60. Not a council road, it's a RMS state road. And from memory, they said if we want to make it safer for pedestrians and for the people who live in that village, and that's what it's about, making it safe, you have to put an overhead bridge, crossing purpose. So it might be that we will see that the RMS will refuse. We need to consider still on our radar, what are we going to do for safety purposes in Lucknow? And we'll probably have to look at alternatives to get community members from one side of Lucknow to the other. Will be an overpass, right? So, and because there's, the truck movements on that road are massive, right? So, and that was the other thing that they took into consideration about large vehicles having to go from different. I know there's roadworks and they get us down to 40 and all those sorts of things, but in normal traffic conditions, that's why they reverted it back to 60. So, yeah, I know we've got this done, but I don't count your chickens for that. I think it'll get knocked back. But the director would probably be in a better place than myself. Yeah.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Whitten's exactly right in what he actually says. It's totally controlled by the RMS. We don't have much say. We can only request. I reluctantly support the request, number one, because I've been contacted personally by quite a number of people out at Lucknow that are elderly and some a lot younger, and they're saying they're worried about the safety of their residents, and it's going to be one of them that actually come off second best. But I wish us luck in our project because, I mean, we tried to get traffic lights at Glenroy over there. They wouldn't even listen to us. They wouldn't even wouldn't even say, oh, what a good idea or what a terrible idea. They just said, no, they're not going there. A little bit further down at Kenross. But, they're just good luck with it. But I'm going to support the recommendation. But, they're worried about the truck noises, the truck movements and all those type of things there. So, I'm not surprised that the RMS say, hey, look, it's 60K all the way through.
Well, Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to support this as well. Just one thing I am going to say is that for a period of time, when and if this does go through to 50, we're going to have a lot of people pulling into Orange from areas like Sydney, Canberra, wherever, if they come in that way, because there's that little man that sits in his car on the side of the road, and if they're not aware that the speed limits have changed from 60 down to 50 and they're still driving through there, we're going to have a lot of very annoyed people heading to Orange by that way, waiting 2 weeks to see if they get a ticket or seeing the flash. So I think that if we do this as well and it gets passed and everything, there's got to be some good communication sent out about the change to make sure that our friends from far away, when they're driving through this area, know that that's what is now happening, because we guarantee we are going to get a lot of people coming through here with about a $300 hit to their bank account. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Greenhouse.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Councillor Floyd said. I do sometimes up to 1,500 Ks a week, and thank goodness for new cars that pick up the speed limit signs so you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, but I too do support it for the safety of the residents there, and I guess we'll just have to see how we go with it.
I'll just have one quick comment. I agree with everyone, but the bottom line is it's the RTA. Or RMS, are they a different name now? I don't know.
Transport for New South Wales.
Sorry, Transport for New South Wales.
Yeah.
They'll be the ultimate decision makers in this saga, which is, as Councillor Whitten, I think it's come back several times throughout the numerous years we've been on council, so they'll be the decision makers.
And, Mr Mayor, I think it's about having plan B. When they say no, well, we'll go push it back to them and say, right, we need people to get across the road here safely. What do we do?
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.7, Wirrabara Walk lighting. Councillor Kinghorn.
The motion.
Are you going to move it?
Yep.
Peter second.
Seconded. Councillor Kinghorn.
So I just want to say I use this area regularly, most days. And I think the lighting is a good idea. I would like to acknowledge that the communication was not optimal initially, and I know it made the people that live near the walkway angry. And from the attending the public meeting, angry people can sometimes be difficult to reason with. Some of these people I know and I like, and they're nice people, and some of them I spoke to afterwards as well. But from the correspondence that I had, which I've read several times, early on, the assumption was that it was going to be big, glaring lights into people's backyards. And some of them, one in particular, one of the speakers tonight actually, when I said, my understanding was they were just low-level lights and only till 10 o'clock at that time. And I've got the reply from him saying, well, that might not be so bad. So they obviously hadn't realised what was being proposed, and that we should do that better, because it does make it really hard to communicate properly with people when they're angry. I would like to dispute some of the arguments. The first one is that it goes nowhere. It's a clear link between Forbes Road and Coronation Drive. a very clear link. It's part of several walking loops. The thing that's come up a few times is what kind of a person walks there at night? Well, it's me. I work long hours. I don't get home from work till 7 o'clock, so I can't go walking until after that. So I had to be careful not to perceive in some of the correspondence that it's only a psychopath that would walk there at night, because in that case I'm a psychopath, so sorry about that. The other one was people should be walking on the streets. The Wirrabarra Walk is a public space. It is open 24 hours a day, and so it belongs to everybody. So I think sometimes that gets forgotten. The safety bits that were being discussed, I always assumed were about vision rather than crime. And as somebody who walks there when it's dark, it would be really nice to have some light from a safety perspective. Some of the concerns were valid. One of the gentlemen I spoke to after the meeting did point out that it does really ice up in the wet areas, and in the lower parts of the walk, when it's rained a lot, they stay wet for a long time. So that was valid. Someone else pointed out that the path itself is a bit of a trip hazard on some areas. However, both of these would be mitigated if the light was improved. The safety would be improved for both of those things. The third one I thought was valid was the cost. And Mr. Blanchard also did point out that it would be an issue potentially if somebody was walking through the walkway when the lights turned off, and that was potentially an issue. So we would have to make sure that it was signed well if this goes ahead. For me, the bottom line is the health benefits from increasing physical activity. I think that outweighs the concerns of the residents, and I'm sorry about that. I can't help what I think. I'm a healthcare professional, and every single day I see people living with problems, with health problems. People in rural areas have poorer health outcomes anyway than their metro counterparts. We've got higher rates of obesity, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, many cancers, and mental health problems like anxiety and depression. All of these, to an extent, can be helped, prevented, delayed, or helped by increased physical activity. As a council, we can't tell people what to eat, but we can and should provide opportunities for people to undertake physical activity in a safe and pleasant environment. And I think this would be a way for them to do that. So I will be supporting this.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I speak in support of the motion for a number of reasons. I've read all heads of legitimate concern. I've read numerous emails which were sent to me. A lot of those emails raise valid points. I do acknowledge, and I thank those writers for providing me that information. My understanding, just with regards to the funding, is that the funding allocated for this project can't be moved elsewhere. Is that my understanding? For a specific purpose for Wirrabarra Walk?
Thanks, Mr. Maunder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the funding is designated under the grant program for Wirrabarra Walk. Doesn't preclude us from seeking permission from the state government to relocate it. We've had to do that with other projects at certain times, so it is possible, but it is at this point dedicated to the Wirrabarra Walk project.
As councillors would know, I'm chair of the Crime Prevention Council Crime Prevention meeting, and one thing which keeps ringing in my ears is that we had the inspector there last meeting, and I asked him this question about Wirrabarra Walk, and what he said was that police see the need for lighting, and that the improved lighting will assist police to do their job better. And we live in a climate where there is an increase in crime rates. One thing I know about crime, being a former police officer, is it doesn't discriminate where it occurs. Crime will occur in other areas of town, and some of those perpetrators of that crime will flee to other areas of town. And Wirrabarra Walk, according to the police, have indicated that Wirrabarra Walk is an area where offenders will sometimes go. The crime isn't recorded at Wirrabara Walk. It's where they end up sometimes because it's an area which is seen to be in darkness, and as Councillor Kinghorn has clearly stated, it's a thoroughfare between Forbes Road and Coronation Drive or Argo Road. So it's an area which is sometimes an avenue for escape for some people. And that evidence was provided by the police inspector. I think at the end of the day, and it keeps ringing in my ears what the police officer said, is that to light up that area will enable police to do their jobs properly, better. And I think as councillors, it's our opportunity to be able to assist police in that work. And I think at the end of the day, regardless of what my personal opinion is, people have the right to feel safe in our community. People do have the right to feel safe in our community, and this is one way where we may be able to contribute to that. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously I'm in support of this as well. Look, I will acknowledge too that the quote-unquote consultation with the residents fell somewhat short. I did want to address a couple of things that some of the speakers said, mainly the meeting at the park that evening where we were sort of showing the different lighting options. It was claimed that no councillors attended, but I know at least Councillor Floyd, Councillor Kinghorn, Councillor Power and I were there. As Councillor...
you can't speak from the public gallery, please. Thank you.
As Councillor Kinghorn said, like it's obviously...
Sorry, just as a point of order, I don't think they did say that. I don't think they did say there were no councillors there, and I think he was very clear.
The comment was that there were only one staff member attended.
He actually pointed out that several of the councillors stayed behind and spoke to people afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, afterwards, but that could have meant afterwards the next day. Or
No, it was after the meeting. They said after the
Regardless.
Yeah, keep going.
Regardless,
Yep.
we were there in good faith to find out what if anything. What, if anything, we could come in terms of a compromise, which is going to benefit everybody in the community. But obviously by then tensions had inflamed and that just wasn't going to be possible. What is good is that overwhelmingly the community as a whole is supportive of this, with 2/3 supporting it. I understand that the residents don't want this in right over their back fence. But at the end of the day, this is a community asset. It's for the community. And as a single parent of a young child, I would feel much more comfortable walking there at dusk, some lighting, than none. And I also think that the lighting times is a good compromise between having it on all night, which was one of the big concerns. And I think this is...
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be speaking for the motion. I, like the last gentleman that spoke in open forum, actually do enjoy the walk early hours of the morning. I do remember after the meeting with the residents up the main street, I went for another walk, and just for example, Mr. Mayor, a young girl had a light run past me up Forbes Park Road, and then she took a left into the thing, and I followed her, and for the life I couldn't see her. There was just this white cement, and to me personally, I just thought that's not safe, and I walk a lot. The second thing is, as what you can see with my complexion, I'm dark. I run straight into a bloke with a dog. So there was a few colourful languages come out with both of us having a fright, and I just thought, bugger. But it's the reason why I'm speaking on that there is I'm echoing everybody that has spoken already. It's about a safety thing. and I've walked out there continuously early hours. I love walking early hours in the morning, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be voting for the lights there for safety reasons. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might offer a different perspective on this. I'll speak in favour, but not too long ago I was a young person. I used to live in the area around Seaburn Drive and whatnot, and believe it or not, I used to run a bit. I used to run up Wirrabara, walk around Duntry League, and tell you what, in the winter months, like I know that footpath in the area around Duntry League is used thoroughly through summer and winter, but there is nothing scary as like maybe a 13 through to an 18-year-old boy or girl, or whatever. Nothing scarier than running down that walkway in the pitch black, and we've already touched on that already. I did it anyway because I was a quick boy. But on that walk up there, at the top end of Coronation Drive, you also got the PLC, and I know the young ladies from there, you like to frequent that walk all the way through the year, and I can't put into words how much more comfortable they're going to be if they've got this lighting there. I'd also, like the other councillors, got written submissions from the residents, and I understand through poor communication they thought there were going to be lights in their backyard, in their windows, pretty well all night. But I'm comfortable reviewing this, and it's going to be shut off at nearly 9 o'clock at the latest. And my only question was going to be, if we deem that is a little bit late, can that be easily changed? So that's my only question to the director, is can that be changed if we deem it's late?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they'll need to have timers on them because they're a solar light. So there'll be a mechanism in there to control the hours that they operate. So we can adjust it either way. We can eliminate certain times. So yes, we can adjust it.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions to the director, if we could there. One of the speakers made reference to a high light, and I hope that's not correct. And one of the speakers also said, it might be the same speakers, said we're going to have solar panels there, those ghastly things you see out there near Wellington that cover 1,300 acres of prime agricultural land. Is that the case? We're going to have solar panels there, or what?
So first question, Councillor, there was an option for an overhead light. Margaret Stevenson Park, they're about the 6 metre high lights, but they do throw a broader light span, but you need less of them. So that was an option, but they're more physically, have more of a negative impact aesthetically wise. So the recommended was for the bollards, about the metre high ones. The second point was about there will need to be some slave poles. So slave poles, they're probably about 12 centimetres. They're about that square. So whatever that is, 6 centimetres square. They have the solar panels on the face of the poles. They're typically black. So we'll need a couple of those to generate some additional solar power for the lights to operate effectively through winter. So they won't. The little panels on top of the pad themselves won't be sufficient to light all the lights for the required time, but those slave poles will enable that to occur.
Okay.
So they're a different type of, yes, they'll be a solar panel, it's a different type of solar panel.
I'm a little bit concerned about the image of those solar panels. But I'm going to speak for the recommendation, but I do have real concerns about turning them off night and all those type of things. My real concerns is because I travel around Ploughman's Lane and all these other streets at around about 4 a.m. and sometimes 8:30 at night, and it's pitch black dark, and I see a lot of people running and walking along Ploughman's Lane and all this stuff, and they're on the wrong side of the road. They're on the wrong side of the road because there's nothing there to make them safe to be on either side of the road, really on the edge of the road there. And if you had this place lit up, I mean, it gives them somewhere safe to actually go, because I know there was a very serious accident on that Forbes Road. It's probably not to include, it happened early in the morning. Now, whether I don't know the full circumstances, but I know it was dark and I drove past it. But reluctantly, I'm going to support it. But I'm just really concerned about the image of what we're actually doing. I hope it's the small lights.
Councillor Lloyd.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll be voting against this tonight. But first of all, I'd like to thank the staff for all the work that they've done on this proposal. I thought it was very well done in its entirety. and knowing that we can also use these lights in other areas was a big thing for me, that we don't have to lose them just because they don't go into this particular spot. I've walked up and down Wirraburra Walk now in daytime, nighttime, whatever, and I look at it as it's in its current configuration for years and years. There's never been an incident or too many incidents in that area, and personally I can't see the need for or the benefits for lighting in this particular area at the moment, but I certainly would like to see if it's ever raised again, if we do look at this down the track, I certainly would be open to discussion, as long as there is discussion around it. I know that a lot of the public and out there are a bit disgruntled about that side of it, whether yes or no, whether they were told about it or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I would really like some good talk around this, and I certainly would like to look at it in the future. But for the moment, I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 2 questions to the Director, if I may. If the lights were installed, can we review in a year to see if there's any problems that some people are concerned that may occur? And also, I just wanted to confirm there's no cost to overall council funds, given the grant is 200k and the solar lighting is 123k quoted.
So both of those are correct, Councillor.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Can I just have a question to the Director, if that's okay, through you, Mr. Chair? If we found this didn't go far enough and it was getting utilised, is the opportunity there for them to become sensor lights?
So there's different there's a number of different lights that we can put in there, and they have different configurations. So most of them have a mechanism where they're dimmed, and then on a sensor on approach they illuminate to their full illumination. That full illumination level is also controllable. So you can control the different lux levels at the top end. So that most of them do that. So they reduce to 30%, and then when you approach them and the sensor detects you, they illuminate so that you've always got a clear path. So that's possible.
So that could be an option that we could look at that might address some of the concerns some of the residents might have as well. Yeah, I'm fully in support of the motion, purely for safety reasons as well.
Any other speakers? Well, I was the one that originally moved the motion last council. It was brought to me as a safety concern. 2 young ladies were walking up at dusk. The sun went down pretty quick, and they asked, was there any chance of having a look at the feasibility? So as a councillor, I'm bound to bring concerns of residents to this chamber to find out whether it can be done or it can't be done. I did that, and this is where we're up to. I acknowledge the residents and the question of communication. I also acknowledge the residents' emails that they did write. I acknowledged most of them. I couldn't turn up to that park meeting over at Matthews Park, because I was at a prior engagement. I'm not going to echo what everyone else has said. I don't think it needs to be repeated. I think as a councillor as well, we're duty bound for safety of all residents walking through a public thoroughfare. So I'll be supporting this 100%. With no other questions, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Did you want to close the debate, Councillor King? Sorry.
I just wanted to, just acknowledge, Mr.
You didn't have your hand.
No, sorry, I haven't closed one before, so I wasn't sure. Mr. Madigan was speaking and talking about measuring success, and I was wondering if the Director could tell me whether we had actually done counts of people who walk there, so that we do have a baseline, because I think his points were valid, and if we want to see whether it actually does have increased use, then we can't do that unless we know what the current use is at particular times. Did we do a people count?
As far as I'm aware, sorry, Mr. Chair, as far as I'm aware, yes, a count was done, but we haven't had counters in place, so they were human counts. So we haven't had counters in place that would activate 24/7 if over a period of time.
we probably, I suppose the counters stay there, do they? But it means it's obviously the times that the lights would be on that we'd be interested in.
Oh, we could put counters in place. We have counters like for entry into Botanic Gardens, for example, which just is you just break a beam and that counts you. So you divide the count by 2, assuming people go in and out. So yes, we could put some in place.
Okay.
It is an interesting question, and I've certainly pondered it since receiving that submission. We do a huge amount of community infrastructure. They're very difficult to measure. So how do you measure the success of a playground or a footpath or a shade sail or a huge amounts of social infrastructure? I have thought about it.
I thought this point was quite valid because the measurement for success here is increased use of the path for more people being physically active. So
then you get into that debate around do 5 people feel safe and then they use it? Is that any less valid? And I don't know the answers to that. We can do a metric, how many people use it. There's 10 other measures of success.
Just think it'd be good to have the information. I mean, it doesn't do anything about the fact that by then it's already done. So
no, I agree with you.
But anyway, it's just a way of addressing some of the concerns. Okay, yeah, all right.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Check slow there.
Against?
Thank you, Mr.
Motion's carried. 5.8, lease of Part Scout Camp to
Recommendations, point 2
I'll
and 3.
second it.
Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any speakers?
Councillor Peterson.
Councillor Peterson.
I support this recommendation, but I do have one request. I reached out to the Scout movement to ask them if there would be any impact from this lease. They said they hadn't been contacted, and they also said they were supposed to have quarterly meetings with council about the camp, which have not occurred. They do use the camp a great deal. I'm hoping that I can request that David Scott, who's the Regional Commissioner of Scouts for the region, be contacted just to work through the proposal and make sure the impacts on the Scouts are minimised. I don't think we need to do deferrals and delays. I'm just quite happy for a verbal reassurance that this will happen. Overall, I think it's a great idea. Happy to support the recommendation with that request.
Councillor, the CEO want to talk to that.
I'll talk to that. Just touching on that.
You.
We obviously took the Scout camp land off the Scouts historically, and we've got a contract pretty much to work with them, which assures they have all the access they want. Council, if council approves this tonight, we will work on a lease with OLAUC, and we'll make sure, I assure you, that the Scouts' interests are contained within any lease with OLAC. I will, however, contact Mr. Scott.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be speaking for the motion. I know that we had some councillors went out and did a debriefing with the centre. It was really good to see the program working with many young people and staff alike too. So I think it's something that the Scout camp has not been utilised to its full capacity, and for many years, other than the Scouts utilising it over a period of time, but to have something that is there continuously, especially on those back building near the where they're utilising now, is a vital opportunity to have people there all the time. This program is vitally important to our community. It also supports the Canobolas High School and those children that just struggle with their education, just struggle with self-worth, all of these amazing things that we in our community as councillors need to support from my values, Mr. Mayor. So seeing this program, and we had, if I may just add, we had they were doing a in Rajury accounting test, and to see them actually counting in Rajury was just really quite good. And whether they knew it or not, they may have stumbled upon the evidence base of what actually education through those who struggle with education, especially with literacy, that numeracy and mathematics actually is the pathway to their education, especially for those who do struggle. And actually reminded me of myself a lot. Bit wild, a young kid. And the benefits of that out there, and that's what the recommendation says, that it'll be something that will be long-term, that will support our young people of Orange for long-term. So hopefully this program will continue to get funding and move forward for the benefit of Orange. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously I'm supporting this as well. I was also able to go out to the afternoon we spent out there where look, I think it's an incredible program out there. It's the educators that work out there with these young men are incredibly inspiring teachers. And the rapport that they've built with these Indigenous youth is fantastic. So I'm more than happy to support this, and I think this is going to be a program that gets copied and pasted all across the country.
Any other Councillor Miletto?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm more than happy to support this. The opportunity to go out there, as a number of other councillors did, and have a look at the excellent work which is being done by some of the teachers out there with some of the programs. What I am impressed is with the vision of the LAUC and regards to helping these kids and had the opportunity to speak to them and have a better understanding of what doing this means to them. I don't want to dampen anything. I'm just wondering, Councillor Powell, whether you overlook the fact that are a voting member of the LAUC, whether that has...
Sorry. Yeah.
In your excitement of getting this through, I'm just wondering whether you needed to disclose.
I did choose to stay in, but I felt it was the program was run basically by the school teachers, and like we saw out there, it was the school teachers and the Land Council, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Were just like an auspicing body to support that program. I hope that brings clarity, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to clarify.
Yeah, I did think about it, but then I thought it was
at least my understanding is that there's a lease with the LAUC to do this.
Yeah, that's right, Mr.
Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I might be able to clarify that. I'm not sure I think you're right, Councillor Power, that the LAUC is a sort of is just putting the request on behalf of the educational group NGY.
Yeah.
Who will sign the lease is to say we'll work that out.
At the end of the day, what we are seeing here is an excellent program which I'm thoroughly in support of. So thank you very much. I support it.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also went to the afternoon out at this place, and it is the most uplifting thing that I have seen since becoming a councillor. It was just lovely to see those kids engaging, kids who hadn't been engaged at school. So, very, very happy to support it.
Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I also visited, and some of the things that struck me that I just wanted to comment on briefly. One was the importance of the site itself and its connection to Garnabulla, Mount Canobolas, and having it on country in that way for these kids, as opposed to being at a school being one of the really important things, and the engagement, as Councillor Power talked about, the use of language in the numeracy work, and the importance of connecting them with language and culture as a way of engaging with them and enriching their lives. And I think it's really, I've commented in this chamber before that, we focused a lot on negative behaviour, on crime, on antisocial behaviour, and on tackling the symptoms of problems. What this program is doing is getting at the causes of the problems. It's spotting the kids who are disengaging, and it's putting things in place to prevent them from going down the wrong path and to help them get back on track. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Any other speakers? I just want to ask a question. I'm fully supportive of this. The lease, the times that it's not being used, that be written into the lease that people on an arrangement will be able to use that site, just so on weekends when there's no one there, you know, can other groups use that as well?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely.
Thank you. Don't say anything else?
No.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Okay, councillors, we'll go into closed meeting. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
I have no such submissions, Mr. Mayor.
In accordance with Local Government Act 1993 and Local Government General Regulation 2004, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred in Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of Council meeting closed to the press and public. 6.1, lease hangar site, Orange Airport. 6.2, sale of old conservation site Hill Street, are classified confidential under the provision of Section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed for the public for business relating to the following sections. C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person of whom Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. And item 6.3, submission reductions 20 of June 2023 under Section E, information that would be disclosed prejudice the maintenance of law. Can I have someone move that we go into closed council?
Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Greenhalgh.
Forgive me, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to have to excuse myself for a personal medical thing for a couple of minutes. I'll be back. Don't wait for me.